A brief statement was issued from Buckingham Palace. Just a few lines, but enough to shock the whole of England. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor will no longer be known as His Royal Highness. He must leave the Royal Lodge at Windsor. The King expresses his deepest sympathies to the victims of all forms of abuse. A cold, decisive announcement, without a single justification. And from that moment, Prince Andrew, the third son of the late Queen Elizabeth II, who once stood in the midst of the British royal family, officially became a person completely removed from the court. A brief statement was issued from Buckingham Palace. Just a few lines, but enough to shock the whole of England. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor will no longer be known as His Royal Highness. He must leave the Royal Lodge at Windsor. The King expresses his deepest sympathies to the victims of all forms of abuse. A cold, decisive announcement, without a word of justification. And from that moment on, Prince Andrew, the third son of the late Queen Elizabeth II, who once stood in the midst of the British royal family's halo, officially became a person completely removed from the royal court. The Queen's favorite son, in 1960 at Buckingham Palace, during the height of Queen Elizabeth II's power, Prince Andrew Albert Christian Edward was born. He was the Queen's third son, and according to many in the palace, her favorite child. Unlike his elder brother, Prince Charles, who was serious and calm, Andrew was described as lively, witty, and somewhat rebellious. As an adult, he joined the Royal Navy and fought in the Falklands War, one of the few bright spots in his career. Thanks to his handsome appearance and confident demeanor, the British press at that time called him the Playboy Prince. Newspaper covers were filled with images of Andrew appearing next to famous models, attending lavish parties, and becoming a favorite face of the public throughout the 1980s. In 1986, Andrew married Sarah Ferguson, a dynamic, friendly, and lively girl. Their wedding was televised live to hundreds of millions of people around the world. And at that moment, Britain seemed to be witnessing a modern-day fairy tale. They have two daughters, Princess Beatrice and Eugenie, but behind the glittering lights is a little-known reality: financial scandals, a lavish lifestyle, and constant rumors, causing their image to gradually fade in the public eye. In 1996, Andrew and Sarah officially divorced. Yet strangely enough, they still live together at Royal Lodge, the magnificent building in the heart of Windsor Park, where the Queen favors her son to stay rent-free as a mark of her love for him. The dangerous relationship named Jeffrey Epstein. As the halo began to fade, Prince Andrew found a new friend, Jeffrey Epstein, a wealthy and influential financial businessman in the U.S. Epstein was revered by the upper class for his relationships spanning from politics, business to nobility. But behind that glitz was a sophisticated network of sex crimes, with a series of young girls being lured, trafficked, and abused. Andrew met Epstein in the late 1990s through Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's close girlfriend and also a royal acquaintance. In the following years, Andrew often appeared next to Epstein, attending parties in New York, Palm Beach, even visiting a private island in the Caribbean, which is said to be the center of criminal activities. Photos of them together, along with witness accounts, later became key evidence in the investigation into Epstein's transnational sex crimes. In 2008, Epstein was first convicted of sexually abusing minors, but after his release from prison, Prince Andrew continued to stay in touch, a seemingly small act that later turned out to be a fatal mistake, ending the image of a prince once loved by the whole of Britain. The scandal explodes, and Virginia Giuffre's accusations. In 2019, Virginia Giuffre's name exploded across the international press. She was one of the victims of Jeffrey Epstein's human trafficking network, and she claims that when she was just 17, she was forced to have sex with Prince Andrew, 3 times in London, New York, and on Epstein's private island. The accusation was accompanied by a shocking photograph of Andrew, with his arm around the young girl, taken at a London house, taken by Ghislaine Maxwell. The prince denied all allegations, saying he did not remember meeting her and suggesting the photo could be fake. But to the British public, the image said it all, an undeniable sign of his scandalous relationship with Epstein. Anger was widespread. In the context of the Me Too movement, It is unacceptable for a member of the royal family to be accused of sexually abusing a minor. Public and media pressure forced Andrew to speak out, opening a chain of events that led to an unprecedented scandal in the history of the British royal family. The disastrous BBC interview, a turning point in his career. In November 2019, Prince Andrew agreed to be interviewed by the BBC's Newsnight program, hoping to clear things up. But the result turned into the biggest media disaster in the history of the British royal family. In the interview, Andrew gave unbelievable explanations. He said that he could not sweat, so Virginia Giuffre's description of dancing sweat was wrong. He also asserted that that night, instead of being with Giuffre as accused, he was taking his daughter to eat pizza in Woking. The story sounds harmless, but to the public it became a highlight of insensitivity. The photos, the story, and Andrew's indifferent attitude made the public believe that he was completely unaware of the seriousness of the incident. Immediately after the broadcast, the British media unanimously called it a suicide of reputation. The next day, Andrew was stripped of all royal roles, charities cut ties, and he disappeared from public life, marking the beginning of the gradual decline of a once beloved prince. The mysterious settlement and the long silence. In early 2022, Prince Andrew was forced to accept a civil settlement with Virginia Giuffre, a decision that helped him avoid a public trial that could have rocked the British royal family. According to many sources, the settlement amounted to $12 million, and it is worth noting that the majority of this amount was paid from Queen Elizabeth II's personal assets. Although in the agreement, Andrew did not admit any guilt, to the public it was no different than a tacit admission. From that moment on, his life took a completely different direction. From a prince who regularly appeared on television and at major events, Andrew now almost disappeared from public life. He lives quietly at Royal Lodge, only occasionally appearing to attend church or attend rare family gatherings. Those who were close to him described him as isolated, quiet, and seemingly completely disoriented, as if the once princely prince had become a shadow of himself. After the Queen's death and the King's coldness, in September 2022, Queen Elizabeth II died, ending a glorious era and also Prince Andrew's last shield. Throughout the shocking scandal, the Queen always believed in her son's innocence. She once said, "I don't believe my son would do such a bad thing." That trust was the only thing that kept Andrew standing, even if only in the shadow of the royal family. But when King Charles III ascended the throne, everything changed completely. Charles had never been close to Andrew. In the eyes of the new king, his younger brother was a burden, a stain that made the royal family lose the dignity he was trying to maintain. Soon after the funeral, Charles began to act. He reduced Andrew's role, cut the budget, and asked him to withdraw from real estate paid for by the royal family. Andrew is still clinging to Royal Lodge, thanks to a special lease signed by the Queen. But everyone knows it's only a matter of time before he's forced to leave, as the royal family quietly unpacks a troubled chapter in its history. New leaks and the final blow. In early 2025, a series of leaked emails from sources in the U.S. shocked the public. These documents showed that Prince Andrew was still in contact with Jeffrey Epstein after 2010, the time when he had claimed to have completely severed ties with the scandalous billionaire. At the same time, a memoir published after Virginia Giuffre's death made things even more explosive. In the book, Giuffre revealed that Epstein had boasted about having a British prince in his arms, and that everything was done in silence, because the honor of the royal family was greater than the pain of any girl. Those words were the last straw. The international media was in an uproar, the public was outraged, and even the British government began to put pressure on the royal family to take a tougher and more transparent action than ever before. Historic decision on October 30th, 2025. Finally, King Charles III, with the full support of Prince William, made a decision that is considered irreversible in the history of the British royal family. Andrew was stripped of all his princely titles, terminated his contract at Royal Lodge, and asked to leave the residence within 3 months. Even Sarah Ferguson, his ex-wife who has lived with him for many years, had to leave. Their 2 daughters, Princess Beatrice and Eugenie, still kept their titles, but both kept absolutely silent, avoiding any comments related to their father's incident. In an official statement, Buckingham Palace wrote, "These measures are necessary to ensure the integrity of the royal family and maintain public trust." According to BBC, an inside source revealed, Andrew did not object and only accepted the king's decision with sad silence. A scandalous chapter closes, not with excuses, but with silence. The silence of a man who once held the title of prince and is now only a shadow of himself. Public and world reaction. King Charles III's decision is seen as a rare turning point in the history of the British royal family, where titles, bloodlines, and honors were once considered sacrosanct. Major newspapers such as The Guardian and The Times simultaneously ran the headline, "End of the Andrew Era, when a prince bowed to justice." On the other side of the Atlantic, Virginia Giuffre's family issued a brief but powerful statement. "Today, an ordinary American girl made a British prince bow. Justice may come late, but it is never silent." In Britain, public opinion is deeply divided. One side believes this is the right decision, demonstrating the rigor and transparency needed to protect the royal reputation. But the other side expressed sympathy, saying that Andrew was just a scapegoat in an effort to rebuild King Charles's public image. No matter what perspective you look at it from, everyone understands that the history of the British royal family has turned a page where there is no longer any room for privilege, nor absolute protection for anyone, even a prince. From Royal Lodge to Sandringham, the final life, according to the official announcement, Prince Andrew will move to a smaller residence on the Sandringham estate, with all expenses covered by King Charles. Royal Lodge, the magnificent house with 30 rooms, ancient gardens, and a private swimming pool, was once a symbol of the love and favor that Queen Elizabeth II had for her youngest son. Now, all is just a memory of a time of luxury that has faded into the past. In the coming years, Andrew's neighbors will no longer be aristocrats or politicians, but service staff and the royal protection team. A huge change for the man who once bore the title of Prince of England. Now just a man quietly living in the memories and shadows of the past. The legacy of a golden age and the most painful fall of the Windsor dynasty. The fall of Prince Andrew is not only a human tragedy, but also the deepest wound in the history of the British royal family in the 21st century. From a prince once loved, once the pride of Queen Elizabeth II, Andrew has now become a symbol of fall, of abused privilege, and of silence before justice. In the eyes of the public, he is a bitter reminder that even blue blood cannot hide sin. And for the British royal family, this story sends a strong message. Title cannot be greater than morality, and justice will never bow before the throne. Royal Lodge, once a symbol of favor and power, is now back under the management of the British royal family. The walls that once echoed with the laughter of two little princesses now only echo in silence. The gates that once opened to lavish parties have now closed forever to the man who once carried royal blood. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, a name once synonymous with glory and honor, has now become the end of a golden age and the beginning of a new era of accountability, transparency, and limits on power within the British royal family. As the Daily Mail wrote, a dark chapter of the British royal family has closed, not with a glorious bell, but with the cold slam of the Royal Lodge door. The Royal Lodge door. The Royal